Hey guys, welcome back to Ruck and Roll. And look, it's late here in New Zealand. I should have been in bed already. I've got work tomorrow, but I had to quickly put this video out, guys. It is quite interesting. Never a dull moment with Jock and Rassie Erasmus and the decisions they make. And look, it is a high risk, high reward type of rugby coaching that they do. And look, from an innovation point of view, no one does this in world rugby. And you can either feel offended by it for not sticking with the norms, or you could just commend it because it's really, I'm a very open-minded person, and I think the coaching staff right now is also very open-minded. So what you do when you analyze risk is the first thing is like, oh, the risk. Amani Libbok not in the team. Who's going to kick to goal if Pollard gets injured? And no. There's no backup for Faf de Klerk. Who's going to be the scrum off if Faf de Klerk gets an injury? Oh, there's only one backline player on the bench. Who's going to be the second backline player if the backline, more than one backline player gets injured? And yes, that is the first thing that you are always going to do, and that's the first thing that went right through my mind as a Springbok supporter. But then you start analyzing, and then you ask yourself, and then you start seeing, I do also feel that I can get where they're coming from. I mean, I would never have said that this is going to happen in the final. I was going totally for a 6-2. I thought Mani would be in there for a backup kicker, but the guy's going all out and going 7-1. Now, let's just quickly say that going 7-1 makes total sense. You know, dominating up front is the way that you beat the All Blacks. You don't try and run the All Blacks. So I don't see the Springboks wanting to run it in this game. But I'm jumping around. But let me get back to that decision. So we're saying Faf de Klerk is there. No Kobus Reinach on the bench. The only backline player on the bench is Willie Leroux. The rest are all forwards. So you're like, what happens if the scrum off gets injured? Well, the argument is Colby can play 9. And although he's never played 9, look, man, he will do nothing fancy. He'll probably not try and do box kicks and all kinds of stuff. They'll play off of Pollard if crisis mode has to hit. But they've got Colby there. Then looking at the other, challenge is kicking. They still have other kickers. If they're going to be just as good, I don't know. But again, that is worst case scenario. Best case scenario, what I would say with a risk and reward is how often have we seen games where Pollard, when he starts a game, he can't play a full game unless he's subbed off. Very often. So the chances that Pollard can play this whole game is really good. Even though he has had an injury, which is my one worry. But the chances that he could play this game, the full game, is pretty good. A Faf de Klerk, same thing. He could be, easily play the full game. We've seen him be subbed quite often, and he is totally fit still and still feeling good. Personally, obviously, from my personal opinion, I can see being open-minded and taking risks. That's what Rassie and them do, and they want to challenge the status quo of rugby, and I respect it totally. It can totally backfire, but it's the risk versus reward. The risk is those two players. What's the chances of that happening in a game? Let's go look at statistically the last, and because this is what the guys do. I know this is what the Springbok coaching team do. They'll probably look at the last 20 games and say statistically how often do we get 2 backline injuries in a game? How often does Pollard go off with an injury when they put on a substitute second half with the impact game? How often do these things happen in a game? How often? Not really that often, but how often when the Springboks play a 7-1 are they just a lot more dangerous and much more of a success rate of winning games? Quite often. So I think they've statistically looked at it and said, we'll roll the dice, we'll take the risk. If this backfires, boys, it backfires. But hey, let's go all out into this final. It makes it, number one, exciting for all us fans. It makes it exciting for the opposition fans because they're like, oh, you're making a big mistake. This could backfire. It just makes it for such a better World Cup final even, Just really them testing the norms of rugby and trying something totally different. Would I have said this would be something they do? I didn't think they would take it that far in a final. I really didn't think this, but they have, guys. They've gone this way. I mean, just so that you guys know, the team is pretty much Steven Kitshoff, Mbonambi, Frans Malherbe. This is the starting team. That's your starting front row. Then you've got Etzebeth and Franco Mostert. They've gone for total experience, the most experienced players. Kitshoff, Malherbe, Mbonambi, Etzebeth, Franco Mostert. Then for their loose trio, it's Franco Mostert, Sia Kulisi, and Peter Steph de Toy. Not Franco Mostert, Sia Kulisi, Peter Steph de Toy, and Dwayne Vermeulen. Again, the most experienced team. And then going further on, still the most experienced. Andre Pollard, Cheslin Colby, Damian Delalindi, Jesse Creel, Curtly Aronson, Damian Willemse, 14 and 15 is the least experienced in this team. But the rest is stacked with experience. Then they still have Willie Leroux on the bench, who's also the most experienced. So going for a really experienced, team to start in this game. Then looking at those replacements, apart from Willie Leroux being the one only back, you've got 7 forwards, which will be Dion Fourie, Oxenchair, who's had an amazing World Cup. Dion Fourie's been really good. Trevor Naikane coming in because Vincent Koch wasn't ready for training on Monday, so they went for Trevor Naikane. John Klein and Arceus Neyman, both of those guys are 2 Munster boys. Dangerous when those guys come on together, the impact they make. Kwagga Smith has had an outstanding World Cup. And Jasper Wiese. Now, if you go, just listen to what I'm reading there. Dion Fourie, Oxenchair, Trevor Naikane, John Klein, Arceus Neyman, Kwagga Smith, Jasper Wiese. Boy, that's like a whole new forward pack coming on. They've learned the impact in the last game that the bench had with an Oxenchair coming on, a Fourie, Arceus Neyman. And they're saying, we bet again, our impact and our forwards are going to make that difference. And I've got to commend them for that. They're saying, we'll take the risk with the back line, because if it was a different team, they would have probably wanted to play differently. But this really falls into Springbok type rugby. It's going to be a rainy day. They've got the best fly off there on the field for Springboks, which is Pollard. The best scrum off, which is the Clerk. And generally a forward pack that can make an impact. They can bash it up front and play that tight type of game that the Springboks are known for being good at. They're not going to play the running, expansive game in this. I'm not saying they will not try and run it when they have opportunities, but that's not going to be their foundations. They're going to want to beat the All Blacks at the breakdown, and maybe not in the first half because the All Blacks will stand up, but second half they'll try and break them down in those breakdowns and in the set pieces, and then try and win the game that way. That's the way they're thinking. It's obvious. Everyone knows. The whole world's going to be up in arms. Matt Williams, let's hear you complain. 7-1 split. The fact is, listen, I know the All Blacks will be up for this challenge. And I know that it's still going to be a phenomenal game because everyone's going to put everything on the line. Boy, it is high risk, high reward type rugby. And high risk can also be a case. Springboks have 2 early injuries, which we haven't seen often happen. The Springboks haven't had much injuries in this World Cup. But if they do, they could be in huge trouble. To try and play a Colby on scrum off could really backfire. And even more so, if a Pollard's off, trying to get other guys to be good at their kicking like Pollard is, with guys not playing, because Marnie Libbok was basically the kicker for the last few games, and then having to gamble with the Clerk having to kick and a Willemse, it could really backfire. Don't get me wrong, it could backfire. But that's the risk. And what's the probability of that risk versus the reward of 7 forwards coming onto the bench? And if they get no injuries, the chances that impact could win them this World Cup, the reward is much bigger if you go do that calculation. We're telling you straight away, we're coming to really beat you up front. New Zealand playing their cards first again and saying to the All Blacks, what are you going to bring? Are you going to stick back to your 5-3? What are you going to do? And I believe that the All Blacks will stick to their 5-3. And they'll try and run it still. And they'll still try and play the running game. And if that comes off for them, it's going to be an amazing game. But the fact is, it's going to play some mind games on Foster. You cannot say that coaching team is not going to be in a little bit of a tussle to think, do we have enough up front to beat the Springboks in this game? So Springboks playing total mind games. And look, guys, it's a World Cup final. There's been a lot said in the press. I know the Springboks are not the most popular in many people's eyes, but you know what? If they pull this off, Rassie Erasmus and Jock Nienaber, and that cup's lifted and the Springboks win this, no one can argue that these guys have just come with all kinds of strategies to win games, and they've played a high risk, high reward competition. And it's just a competition, and you can take risks, because every game you take risk versus reward, and if it can pay off for you, you go for it. So I can see the way they think. It's a total surprise for all of us. I would have never called it. If you watch our podcast that we've had, no one called it. We all said 6-2. I definitely thought there'd be two backs on the bench. There's only one. Wow. Boys, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be really interesting to see what the All Blacks put up. I wouldn't be surprised if the All Blacks stick to their game. I know the way Foster thinks. And this is going to be a forward versus backline battle. And that is what we're going to see in this game, guys. And it's your typical All Black type game. And even if the Springboks come with a 7-1, that doesn't at all mean that this is, in the bag for them. And, now they have too much power up front. Because it's risk. It's high risk. And even with that 7 forwards, it doesn't mean that the All Blacks can't beat the Springboks on the day. If they come out with that ferociousness up front and match the Springboks, they can still neutralize that impact. And, if they can get their backs moving with quick ball, obviously it could be dangerous. I've got to say, though, the Springboks are throwing everything at it. And when I say throwing everything at it, what's Springbok's strengths? Set pieces, forward type play. They're throwing everything at it, saying 7 players from the bench. Our most experienced team starting, we are throwing everything at it. It's almost like when you sit at a gambling table and you put in all your chips. They're saying, this is my last round. If I can win now, I take all the money. If I lose, I lose. But I'm putting all my chips in. Let's go. I am willing to gamble. The question is, the All Blacks sitting next to the Springboks at the gambling table, do they play it safe? Do they also go gamble? And what is their sense of gambling? Maybe their sense of gambling is, we stick to our game plan and we will beat you the way we play with our quick ball running type rugby. And we will match you up front. It just makes for such an amazing day, guys. I mean, the emotion that this brings up. I've heard all the interviews and stuff with the players and the press conferences. Both teams seem so fired up. You can see how much it means to both these teams. And they realize what a big occasion this is going to be. This is going to be one fabulous final. There's so much on the line for both teams, wanting to win that 4th World Cup. And just generally the emotion of, that kind of first opportunity in a World Cup final where the All Blacks and the Springboks can play again since 95. It's all going to be super special. Guys, if you're an All Black supporter, if you're a Springbok supporter, if you're Irish, doesn't matter what you are. I just want to thank every single one of you watching my videos. And sometimes even if you don't agree with our opinions or my opinion, at the end of the day, you've got to respect that we're making great rugby content and we're bringing up subjects which would not have been, discussed. And that's the lovely thing about social media and having a YouTube channel like this. I feel blessed. And I thank every one of you. If that means enough to you, hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. And thanks for watching. And sorry if my tongue's a bit slurry and whatever. I am tired. I'm going to go sleep now. Thank you. See you in the next one. Bye.